Hello everyone, I am Duke and welcome to today's video. So over the last few days I've been thinking that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the official Discord, Blue Sky all have amazing painters showing off their Trench Crusade miniatures, and I thought, well, surely this must be daunting for beginner painters and new hobbyists coming into Trench Crusade, and there must be a few of them sat at home thinking, well, I'm scared to get started because I don't want to put a miniature on the tabletop that doesn't look like the miniatures I'm seeing on these platforms, and what if I'll get laughed at if I'm putting a miniature down that doesn't look like them? Well, spoiler alert, the community is pretty chill and it won't be laughing at you. Everybody is really welcoming and there is a wide variety of painting skills on display in the hobby. And so to help me emphasize that, I turned to Reddit to ask them to show me some miniatures that the community are proud of. I've gotten everyone's permission to include them in the video, along with their permission to give them some constructive feedback. So if you'd like to leave some constructive criticism in the comments below, please do so, but please remember to be respectful. I've chosen a variety of painting levels so that hopefully, no matter if you're an experienced or a beginner painter, you will hopefully be able to take something away from this video for you. So, without further ado, let's jump in and get started. So if you haven't played the game yet and are looking to learn before you invest, the game is miniature agnostic, and a really nice example of this is this Trench Pilgrim kit bash by user Dreadnought Necrosis over on Reddit. So this miniature is loaded up with pouches and supplies because of this person's personal story behind the warband, and they have used a variety of pieces from the Krieg Kill Team kit, along with a body of a clone trooper from Star Wars Legion, and the legs and torch are from Reaper minis. So I think this is a really nice kit bash, and I'd like to see a few more highlights on the flames and the colours of the flames picked out to really sell it as fire, because at the moment it's as dull as the rest of the model, and the model being dull and grimdark works, but fire wouldn't look like that. From there I'd probably pick out a few brighter spots on the metallics and add a highlight or two to the cloth. Overall, it's a really nicely done mini for the tabletop, and I think those few minor touch-ups would really enhance its readability and make it stand out from afar. If you're a new hobbyist, you might find some of the sculpts daunting, but don't worry, there aren't any hard and fast rules or official colour schemes yet that you might find in games like Bolt Action, Warhammer or Star Wars Legion. So let's have a look at the artwork for the Shrine Anchorites, for example. While the artwork that we often see of these shows them as a dark grey or steel, you can paint them however you want, and I quite like the blue that user Red Sarge's Anchorite has. For a newer painter, focusing on large blocks of colour like this is a really effective way of getting minis on the tabletop. All the blue is done in one even nice coat of blue. All the golds and metallics are also one colour, with what looks like a dark wash over the golds. This is a nice example of a simple but effective tabletop mini. Now, gore on miniatures can be quite hard to pull off, and it can often look like pools of jam on your base, for example. One good tip to improve that would be to get a blood effect paint on an old toothbrush and flick the gore effect onto the mini from the bristles. This gives the blood a bit more of a convincing splatter effect. Just remember though, when you do this, that less is more. I think the next thing that I'd work on this model would be to pick out the metallics with a highlight colour. To help with brush control to do that, you could also practice picking out the wood grain on the breaking wheel with a light brown. At the moment, the breaking wheel only reads as wood because of the texture, and it would be nice to see that worked on to show some of that texture off at a distance. Here's an example of a work in progress of my own to help you visualise what I mean by that about the wood grain. Another great mini from the range that you can really go to town on with artistic license or keep your colour schemes nice and simple is the Heavy Machine Armour. These take weathering and chipping effects really well because of their large flat surface areas, and they lend themselves to a variety of painting techniques. This Heavy Machine Armour by user Totally Cool Kiwi shows this off really well. You can get a similar effect to this black chipping on the chest here by using sponge chipping, and brown weathering can be done with watered down Mornfang brown paint, for example. Overall, it's a very good example of how to add weathering to your machine heavy infantry. I'd like to see more on the base of this miniature to frame and complement the model. The only other things I'd change here are an edge highlight of silvers along some of the panels and edges. This would show areas of new damage and help break up the overall blue of the miniature. If this were a competitive piece, the added highlights would clearly define the panels of the miniature and improve its readability. The other area I think would benefit from more work is the chain tabard. At the moment it stands out from the mini because it doesn't have the same weathering that you would see on the rest of the miniature. Now I think it could be tied in with a bit of that weathering and dirt of its own, but only in really small amounts just to help it tie in. I received a similar bit of feedback on one of my own models and implemented it here on my converted Anchorite. For me, I'll be going back over the silvers to highlight them, using a light brown or tan to pick out the edges of stones on the base, and adding silver chipping to the rust areas. Similarly with the freehand on my Anchorite shield, I'll be adding more depth and shadows to the freehand before picking out the rivets in silver and highlighting the shield's edge. Since I intend to use this miniature in competitions, it is important for me that all areas of the miniature are finished to the same standard, and I think the same applies to that machine heavy infantryman. Which brings me on to our last community miniature. This Lieutenant miniature by user Ustrello is a really good example of what I mean when I talk about a miniature's readability. Every panel and section of the miniature stands out, is clearly defined either through the use of shadows or texture, and a lot of the miniature is finished to a consistent standard. I think some really easy areas of improvement here would be the stones and the wood on the base. These would benefit from more contrast between their light and shaded areas, as they look a bit flat at the moment and don't really match the standard of the rest of the mini. On the armour, I'd pick out the silvers and golds with brighter highlights, as they don't have the same depth as the armour at the moment. I would also like to add a bit more saturated red to the brighter areas of the helmet, knee pads, and any area that would reflect light. Personally, I feel like the only real thing that lets this mini down for me is the texture paste fully covering the boots on the base. I feel like a thinned down pigment would have probably tied the base and mini together overall far better without fully obscuring the details and paintwork on the boots. Before we close out the video, I do want to say a massive thank you to everyone who I spoke to about using their miniatures in this video. I'm sorry I didn't get around to showing everyone's off who responded, but if you liked this video and would like a Reddit review part 2, let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like some tutorials on how to do some of the effects and techniques I've mentioned in this video, feel free to let me know below and I'll see what I can do. For anyone looking to get into Trench Crusade, I hope seeing this variety of different painting styles and different levels has been helpful. The best piece of advice I can give to any hobbyist is paint another one. You'll always improve with repetition and practice, and the miniatures and community of Trench Crusade are a great and welcoming way to start your tabletop journey. And that brings us to the end of today's video, and I do want to say a massive thank you to everyone that allowed me to include their work in the video. I hope you all agree with the feedback I've given you. If you don't, let me know in the comments below, or even bounce some questions back to ask me why I might think what I think. For discounts on your hobby supplies, check out my affiliate links below, and please like, subscribe, share a favourite video with a friend, or become a channel member. With that, I'll say thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.